I'll tell you the story of the opening weekend because was so ridiculous, right? At that point, I had zero experience in the hotel business. I knew absolutely nothing about the hotel business. So roll on 3 o'clock in the morning and this place was just carnage. You're in my bed. It was just a disaster. But it was like a real baptism of fire. Everybody wants to live that little bit of luxury. The world's going to become a very frictionless and transactional place that's essentially run by robots, and I think that hospitality there's going to be so much focus on it because that's going to be where you're going to get your human interaction. As a hotelier, you are custodians of people's most precious time.
Welcome to the Sweet Talk podcast by the Hotel Magazine. Now, today's guest has come all the way from Edinburgh now to sunny London. We're here, rooftop bar in Canary Wharf. I would consider him maybe a serial entrepreneur looking at the industry very differently. So he's in the boutique hotel space, working through his third property as we speak now. So we're joined today by the brilliant Mike Baxter. Mike.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
That's a very lovely intro.
Yeah.
Can I use that in my bio?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. That was off the dome as well. I'm not pre-prepared. Tell us where we are, why we're here.
So we're in the third House of God's property, very soon to open. As you'll see, it's not got the kind of normal bustle of a hotel because we're just kind of in the throes of getting the place opened and launched. So it's the third House of God's. We started with one in Edinburgh originally, and then we moved through to Glasgow, and we've just about finished the completion of this one. We're in Canary Wharf. In a big, beautiful gold building that's floating on the water. And it's going to be really exciting once we get this thing open.
Yeah, it's very House of Gods. I must say, it's absolutely beautiful. And we're lucky to get a peek behind the curtain of what this is going to be. I mean, when we've spoken before, you've said hospitality has been part of your life as long as you can remember. So where did it all begin? What kind of first pulled you into what you now do? I know you do lots of different things.
I always like to say that I started my hospitality career when I was about 16, and I looked quite old for a 16-year-old, right? I was one of the few guys, the envy of my friends, that I had facial hair at 16 years old. So I could get into a pub.
Yeah. I was the opposite, definitely.
You're still waiting.
I'm still trying.
Well, listen, I wish it was the other way around now, right? But so I would often go to the pub with then of course my girlfriends, because girls could often get into the pubs before the guys could. So all my jealous friends were stood outside, and from a very early age, I would love kind of going into bars and clubs and just the kind of energy and excitement about everybody socializing together and places not feeling like your home or anything you'd seen before. And I decided to go to the owners of some of these clubs and tell them I was from the University Rowing Club or something like that, and I would rent their club for say the last Wednesday of what would coincide with the last Wednesday of, say, the school term, right? I would then print off a load of tickets, and if we were friends at school, I would give you 10 tickets, and if you sold all 10, you would get one for free. And it was really, really successful. And from that kind of early stage, that kind of led into kind of going to university and starting running big nightclub nights and things. And I was just absolutely addicted to it from day one. So I often joke that I've yet to actually have a job. I've just been very fortunate to kind of be doing this stuff all my life.
Yeah. When did you realize, was there a moment you realized that could turn into a real career?
I love the sense of occasion of running a big night. So, and what it would mean to so many people, because this was back in the day where these were huge events, 1,000, 2,000 people we'd have coming along to them, and tickets would sell out, and there was a real buzz about it, and people would be phoning you to get on guest lists and stuff, and that everybody was getting dressed to the nines for it. And I just loved the energy of that. It was so sociable and so fun, and and obviously it was reward. Sometimes it was rewarding financially, and to be honest with you, I never did it for that. I did it just because I absolutely loved the energy of it. Yeah, absolutely. And it was nightclubs were very appropriate to my age at the time, so nightclubs and bars is where it all started.
Yeah. So from, I guess, from kind of nightclubs, bars, your first big step was obviously the famous Baxter Hostel. Are there kind of experiences and lesson gained from that time that you use today? How did kind of the Baxter Hostel, like how did that step kind of happen?
It was really, really formative. So like basically what happened was I kind of, the running nightclub nights kind of led into like a physical building, right? So I when I was 22, I opened a bar. It was a very kind of like cool, like dance music orientated bar. This is going back to like 1997. Yeah, I did that for a while, and that kind of grew into some other things. And then of course I was way too young, and it all just kind of blew up in my face. Yeah. And I then kind of got into to property, and I had a small building company, and I was doing a lot of kind of developing and things. I'd taken on a property in Edinburgh, which became the Baxter, and it was just before Airbnb had started to kind of become popular in the UK. As I was basically going to kind of develop it into a sort of 2-bed, 3-bed kind of party apartment or something like that. And there was a backpackers hostel directly above, and as I was going in there and we were getting the drawings done and everything, I was watching all these kids walking up and down the stairs, and I was thinking, that's a lot of rent, right?
Yeah.
And then I started looking at the kind of what was available in the hostel market. And at this point, it was very much the kind of like, international backpacker, on like, gap year type accommodation, it's like quite low rent. And I was thinking there was at the same time, there was in Portugal, this had been this emergence of these, like, I think they were calling it like flash packing, right? So the hostels looked more like boutique hotels, but they were still backpacker hostels. And Edinburgh didn't have one. I don't think there was actually at that point one in the UK. So I was able to kind of do something really nice from an aesthetic perspective, but also put in a great business.
Yep.
And, we were able to get a better rate than all the other places, because what we found very quickly was people were traveling often on their own and wanted to meet new people, but they didn't want to stay in some like, very, very busy, noisy, stag do orientated backpackers place. So yeah, that's kind of how the Baxter was born.
Yeah.
At that point, I had zero experience in the hotel business. Like I knew absolutely nothing about the hotel business.
You famously said you didn't even know what a PMS was.
I honestly didn't know what a PMS was. Yeah. I actually didn't know what a PMS was for about a year later, right? So we opened, I'll tell you the story of the opening weekend, because it's like, was so ridiculous, right? So we'd built it ourselves, right? Like it was my brother and I had a friend who was a carpenter, and we just kind of like set about it, and we did everything ourselves. So it was, we were really doing this thing on a budget. And after about a year of building, we had to strip this building out to the bare bones. And after about a year of building, we were trying to get it open for the summer. And in Edinburgh in August is the start of the Fringe Festival. And I mean, I think the population base of Edinburgh like increases by about 5-fold. I mean, it's so busy, you can't get a hotel room anywhere. And I was like, we have to make the festival. And our first opening day was the first day of Edinburgh Festival. So because we weren't sure we were going to get open, I hadn't pre-sold a single, this was the Friday, was the first day. I hadn't pre-sold a single room. So I put it on booking.com on the Wednesday, and it sold out by the Friday, right? Because there's no rooms left in Edinburgh, right? But also, I didn't know how to, I had absolutely no idea, because I'd just been building the whole time, right? I had no idea how to run like any kind of like a short stay accommodation. So we had this thing, this system, I think it was called the Little Hotelier. I think it's maybe a booking.com system, but it's for like small properties.
Yep.
B&B, I didn't know it was called a PMS, right? Yeah. And we kind of loosely got it to work, and we're able to take people's payments and roughly allow them to stay for a certain amount of time. Yeah, we're just kind of working it out as we go. And the first weekend, essentially, our check-in was the hostel's 46 people, so our check-in was 46 people. We had no staff because I hadn't bothered employing anybody. I hadn't slept in 4 days, right? And I was checking everybody in. I had to do all the housekeeping. I didn't have a night porter, so I had to stay up. After all that, I had to stay up all night, right? And it was just, it was the most ridiculous thing. I didn't realize for the backpackers hostel to work, you had to assign beds to people.
Yeah.
So I just said, oh, you're in room 3, pick a bed. Right. So roll on like 3 o'clock in the morning, and this place was just carnage. Like, you're in my bed, you're in my bed. It was just a disaster. But it was like a real baptism of fire. And, actually, I think that's one of the things that has allowed, I suppose, me to develop the hospitality business that we have, is like the fact that we really don't have a clue what we're doing. And we've had to kind of go, instead of having kind of any formal training, this is done this way, we've had to kind of look at it and go, try and work out how it's done, and then maybe just do it the way we want to do it, because it maybe makes more sense to us the way that we're doing it. If you put together a team of experts who have a lot of experience, they bring their parts, and it works very, very well. But for the company that we were able to develop, and then I suppose what's come out of that, which is House of Gods, we also looked at things differently, and worked out our own way.
Were there any like sort of mistakes in those early days that you still, obviously there were mistakes,
are
there any that you still think of now and sort of learn lessons from, that you, and maybe on the other side of it, successes that you had?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna get killed for this, right? But my the Baxter Hostel had been open for a couple of months, right? And it made a bit of a buzz. And I got approached by a very, very successful entrepreneur. And he said, listen, I love what you're doing. I want to help you roll these out around the country. And I was like, brilliant, this is it, we've made it, right? And so we did a deal, and we decided to form a partnership. And we looked at a few things. And the hostel market is a tricky one. You need to be in a city that has a significant amount of tourism. You can't just do it in, say like a random city. It's, there needs to be really, really strong tourism. So it was very difficult to find a building. And he had recently purchased a building in Hackney,
Right.
At Hackney Central Station. And he phoned me up and he goes, oh, you're a builder, come down and help me do this. And how about you come up with like a brand for it? I said, there's no way we can do a backpackers place in Hackney, because it was, I think the part of the building that we ended up putting the hotel in, it's called Kip. The part that we put in was, I think it was like 20,000 square feet. So that would have been like 400 hostel beds in Hackney, right? It just wasn't going to work, right? So I said to him, let's instead, like, I think I can come up with a cool hotel brand. So I came up with this idea of Kip, as in get some Kip. And it's very budget friendly. But it looks cool, right? So it's like concrete floors, whitewash walls, very minimalist. But the idea was, there's no F&B as such. You go in, you drop your bag, you go out and enjoy London. But it's safe, looks good, it's cool. It appeals to a certain design aesthetic. Anyway, as I didn't know anything about how to run a hotel, I convinced him to spend, I think it was about £300,000 on putting in our own laundry system, so we could do all our own laundry. Right. And it was ridiculous. I mean, there was all these incredible washing machines and dryers and these rolling iron things. And I mean, the company that sold us the equipment must have just gone, what are these guys doing, right? And then, of course, I didn't realize that you could just like phone this service and thousands of, and it's just a turnover from housekeeping. And we put all this whole thing in. And then the very first day I was like, right, who's washing all the, 100 rooms worth of bed sheets and towels and all the rest of it? And everyone just looked like, what are you talking about? Of course we can't do that. So all of that equipment, £300,000-400,000 worth, was its sole function ended up being doing my laundry. So yeah, you could
most
call that,
expensive laundry setup on
earth. You could call that a mistake, and I haven't actually told him that story, so I'm going to get shot now that comes out.
So obviously, I mean, from the Baxter Kip, fast forward to what is now obviously House of Gods, very different to traditional, I suppose, British hotels. Where did the vision, the concept for that come from? Because it is so unique. What you've done across all 3 properties now.
I'd started to spend a little bit more time in London, and I was very fortunate to get invited to some really kind of like interesting venues. You know, London's got so much to offer. There's so many incredibly beautiful places, and you know, I would go and visit like the great heritage hotels of the world. You know, the Savoy and the Dorchester, and I very much visited them. I never stayed. I would like go into the bar and look around, and you know, I really kind of fell in love with the romance of hotels. And then I would kind of like think a lot about things like the Orient Express and all that sort of stuff. And at exactly the same time, I started just attending a lot of kind of like hotel conferences and events, and there was this. Everybody at that point was really, really talking about experience, right? And experiential hospitality. Do you hear people talking about like experience, like as in we'll put a bottle of wine in the room? Hotels are often built as kind of room first and, you know, getting the aesthetic right. And then it's like, oh, okay, now we need a story and now we need to create some sort of experience. And I thought that's the wrong way around. You need to think about the experience and the story as the thing that the guest's coming to enjoy. And the fact that you've got a bed, well, you know, that's like, yeah, that's just, of course, you know, that's the foundation, right? That's just part of the kind of the offer, but it shouldn't be the offer and then an add-on, right? So I very much, when I started to kind of create like what I call like the world of House of Gods, it came from like, what would that experience be like first? What would it be like to go and stay in the Savoy or the Dorchester? What would it be like to go on the Orient Express? You know, because, you know, beautiful and wonderful as these products are, they're prohibitively expensive, right? So I wanted to create that feeling and give people that feeling, but without the same price tag. And also I wanted it to be really, really fun. So if I kind of took those elements, right, the kind of the wood paneling and the velvet and the, you know, the kind of moody lighting, and then kind of make it a bit more hedonistic, a little bit more like the kind of Parisian hotels,
Yeah.
And you know, and then kind of like borrow a little bit from the kind of great rock and roll stories of debauchery in hotels around the world. You know, like if you think about like places like Chateau Marmont and all the great stories, and kind of mix all that up, throw in a little bit of cocktails, a bit of neon, and make it just a little bit more accessible. And yeah, that was it. And you know, it really just caught fire as an experience.
What kind of was the point where you realized it was, you know, it was scalable? It wasn't just a, you know, a one-off property. It's something that you can kind of expand. Obviously, we're now in London. We're you know, you've got Glasgow, Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Like, when did you realize, you know what, this is more than just a singular hotel?
You know, it was very gradual, right? Like, you know, all these things. I mean, because House of Gods, I wasn't like sort of taking somebody else's blueprint. I was borrowing lots and lots of stuff from different people and putting it together. It wasn't like one moment I woke up and went, oh, eureka, I've got all the parts. It was very, very gradual. First off, it was very much just going to be one hotel in Edinburgh. It's like a little bit secret. It's 22 bedrooms. It was kind of edgy and cool. And, you know, then like when it really did go and so many people enjoyed it and so many people for so many different walks of life would start come through the door, I was like, right, this is strange. This isn't just like the kind of this wee cool crowd that I wanted to attract or that I thought it would attract. It's a little bit of everyone, because when you take those elements that I'm talking about, those kind of ingredients, there's something in all of those things that apply that
It's universal.
it's universal, but also there's little bits of it that appeal to different people. So I kind of joke that my Balenciaga Love Island kids like the Gucci wallpaper. I'm very much joking, the Gucci wallpaper and the kind of like the designer vibes of the place, and in comparison to somebody who's maybe kind of more into the kind of like moody vampire-esque kind of vibes of the wood paneling and the velvet. And I think people just look at it with different filters. And you know, listen, I think there's a lot of like maybe young parents who just want to hit the Prosecco button and have a butler running around after them, right? And I was like, this is everyone. You know, everybody wants to live that little bit of luxury for 24 hours, you know? And then I realized that, you know, this is really big. And people have said to me along the career, well, you know, this isn't really scalable because, you know, it's too much this way, or it's too hedonistic, or it's too decadent, or, you know, it's not going to really appeal to everyone. And I'm like, show me one person that wouldn't like a little bit of shot of luxury in their life.
Yeah.
Right. So if that's kind of ultimately what all these parts kind of mean, and escapism, then, you know, I think it's for everyone. So I think we could, I think the House of Gods could exist in any city in the world, and it'll find its crowd.
Yeah, who doesn't like to have fun and like a good
Right,
experience? Like,
right.
that's what I think we get away from that sometimes in hospitality and hotel space. Ultimately, it's about making people's day better.
I mean, I heard this great thing. It's like we're in the business of making people feel taller, not smaller, right? And I loved that. I was like, that's it, right? Like we have a package that's been very, very successful that or experience rather in the hotel. We call it "Treat Me Like I'm Famous." This is an experience that most people take when they come and stay at the hotel. And the idea is it's based on the rock and roll rider, like, so if you're a rock star or superstar, you get everything laid on for you. So it's, we've kind of turned that into, you get your own bar tab, you go into the room and it's decorated a certain way for you. And there's like, you can press a button and the butler runs after you, and you get a late checkout because of course rock stars get up when they want, all that kind of stuff. And it's treat me like I'm famous. It's not the other way around. I think a lot of hotels are guilty of going, look how clever we are.
Yeah.
Look how spectacular this is because we've done this. Or we have the best chef, or what, rather than like we're the superstar.
Yeah.
And I think that the context of House of Gods is, you're the god in House of Gods. You're the rock star for the weekend.
Make it about the guest.
Absolutely. Treat me like I'm famous, and I think it just resonates with people. And I think that was probably, if I've got any part of this thing right, it's that.
I think typically when places scale up and you open a second and third and multiple venues, it's quite, I'd say it's probably easier to run as a business if it's more sort of generic. So you can sort of copy paste to the next one. How have you made sure to sort of stay away from doing that, keep everything unique?
Yeah, I mean, that is the most difficult thing, right? So in a very, very small, and this is the big challenge of this place, right? So Edinburgh's 22 rooms, Glasgow's 28, this is 80, right? And this rooftop is 300 cap or something, right? So everything is just kind of like massively scaled. Fortunately, we're a few years in, so we kind of know what we do. We've refined our product much more. At the early days, we were, throwing loads of crazy ideas around. Like we've done so many mad, like see your question earlier about, what failures we made. Like we've just done everything wrong to get it right, but now we're a little bit further in. We kind of like, we understand, we have better systems in place to be able to do things. And very much hoping that we can still deliver that experience. But, the truth will be the truth will be revealed in a few months, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, this place, obviously, a lot of personal achievement for you. You've worked your way from, like you said, building properties to, the whole way through. So obviously,
I'm still painting the floors in
here,
right?
I know.
Like,
I
think that you can't get that out of you.
Yeah, because obviously you're still very, very hands-on, but like personally, we're obviously in one of the probably wealthiest square footages in the whole of the UK. Like, what does this kind of mean for you personally as a launch here?
Canary Wharf PLC. I think they're like the biggest landlord in the world. They phoned us, and that was a really, really, that was kind of like, okay, so we're not, I always felt there was a little bit of a David and Goliath thing in the story of House of Gods. I think that the hotel industry was a little bit like, what are these guys doing? Our KPIs have been impressive for the industry. To be asked by Canary Wharf to come here they could have had any hotel company they want come into this building. And my brother and I, a couple of wee guys from Scotland, it was like a real sense of achievement. And it's definitely given us the springboard to really, really do what we want to do. I've got very, very strong views on what it means to be a boutique hotel business. I think that so many hotels, and you see this now in the chains buying up boutique hotel brands. I think that there's certain stakeholders that believe that boutique hotels are an aesthetic, right? Boutique hotels in their purest form is an expression of the way that the stakeholders view the world, right? It's kind of like their why, and their why then aligns with a certain type of guest. And this harks back to the first boutique hotels that ever existed, which, I mean, the first one was the Blake Hotel here in London, which is no longer around, but it was a hotel created by Anushka Hempel, who's a Bond girl and lived just the coolest life ever. And she created this hotel that called the Blake, where artists and movie stars and things would come, and it was almost her little tribe in London. And then the next really famous boutique hotel was actually in New York, and it was created by Ian Shiger, who was he was the architect of Studio 54, right? So these weren't hoteliers; these were like pioneers in reflecting what society was doing. And I think that, to me, that is what like boutique hotels are about. There's got to be a real kind of like story and a why, and something that aligns with your customer and the way that they see the world, so that they end up like seen, if you see. And that's something that I want to carry on doing. And and as I kind of like go through my career, kind of like the way I kind of see things now is, there's going to be different products, but they're all going to start with that experience first thing, rather than, we got a great designer and we got, 242 beds,
Yes, we won't see you with any 300 key hotels anytime soon.
Never say never. Never say never. That sounds like a great check.
Delighted to be joined by one of our partners, La Bottega Collective. I'm here with Rachel Parry, the UK country manager for the group. Rach, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
So a lot of people will have experienced kind of La Bottega Collective without actually realising. Obviously, you work with some amazing brands. You've got partners all over the UK, all over the world. Tell us a little bit about some of your brand partners for the group and who you work with.
Yeah, so we have over 120 brands under our license portfolio. So we call ourselves the guest experience curators. So how we try and do that is we try and perfectly match our brand partners with our hotel partners, so that we have this really beautiful guest experience. So we work with the likes of Diptyque. We have Grown Alchemist, which we have in the House of Gods that we are in today. We work with Joe Loves, where we have placed them with Shangri-La, and we've created beautiful marketing activations at Christmas, where we have Joe Loves Christmas tree, or we've also done like a sleigh with Christmas time, which is a really nice time to activate things like that, where we really showcase the brand and what it can do.
So it's about also enhancing kind of guest experience and giving them that little bit more than just a shower gel or a shampoo in a room, basically.
Exactly. It's not about a shampoo in a room for us. It's about kind of weaving that into the 360 experience. So really making sure that brand fits with the DNA of the hotel, and then using all the touch points to bring it to life. So whether that is a brand where like Anatomy, which has sleep sprays and sleep aids, where we've just done in the Newman, they've got a full mini bar of all the different sleep aids that you can get. And they've also partnered with other beautiful tech brands in the mini bar, where they have like a LED face mask and things like that. So we have loads of different ways to bring the touch points to life.
That's so cool. And then obviously, aside from, I suppose, that area of amenities, you've obviously added other parts to the La Bottega Collective portfolio recently as well. So you obviously are in lots of different spaces throughout the hotel now.
Yeah, exactly. We can do bed linens, F&B linens, spa linens. So we can even make linen to fit exactly like a Guarani bed or a Lamy bed, depending on what they have, completely customized. We can also do beautiful retail gifting with our Palatino. We can make like branded luggage tags or little pockets or different things that you want to retail or give as giveaways. Or if you have a launch, we can make little gift sets and events, or we can create sleep sets with eye masks and beautiful textiles, again all keeping in the colorways and things like that you've got for the rooms.
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate enough to have been to a few of the hotels you mentioned, and I've experienced obviously your brands a lot, and yeah, it is amazing. So thanks for joining us.
No thanks.
Welcome back. So in that break, Mike, so you took this is a little bit left field, you took a pretty unique call about a castle.
Yep.
So I'm hoping you're going to kind of elaborate on that and tell us a little bit more about what's just happened.
As I had said earlier, like I've been looking at a lot of like really kind of new, fun and interesting projects, and I recently did a deal on a castle in Scotland. So I want to create like a kind of family hotel brand. And yeah, so I had to jump off the call there because that was actually the funding. So I'm delighted to say that we now have funding for the project, and that's pretty good because the builders are on site building just now. So at least I know that they're going to get paid at the end of the week.
That's a podcast first, I think.
Yeah, we've broken some news there.
Yeah, live funding. Yeah,
Yeah.
we could have actually done this. You could see the whole process.
It's like it was planned. I promise it wasn't.
It's going to be an incredible experiential hotel brand that is going to it's going to be a lot of fun for the families and adults alike, and it's going to be largely based on witchcraft and wizardry.
Okay.
Which is going to be a lot of fun.
Interested.
Yeah,
okay.
it's going to be really, really good fun. I mean, it's like I've actually, a lot of the creative work has actually been done by my kids. So my kids would often phone me and say, "Oh, Dad, can we come and stay at House of Gods?" And unfortunately for them, House of Gods is, and probably not so unfortunate for the adults, but House of Gods is an over 18s hotel, and it's been a lot of fun starting like the creative process, but having it led by my children, which is it's really exciting, and it's it's going to be wild, and it's very much going to be very, very, very experiential,
very unique as well. By
completely
the sounds
unique,
of things. So, yeah.
Completely unique. Speaking of sort of other projects that you work on, I know that you've recently launched a champagne brand. I guess first of all, how did that come about? How's it all going? Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so the brand's called Liqueur, which is the heart in French, but it's actually called Liqueur London. And I got there basically in House of Gods. We have these buttons, as you know, in the rooms, and you press them, and somebody comes running with it's like press for Prosecco. So you press the button, and a butler comes running down the corridor and knocks on your door and hands you a glass of Prosecco. And it's quite funny. The buttons actually, the butler buttons that we call them, have 3 different buttons on them. One's for your breakfast, one's for Prosecco, and the last one's for milk and cookies. And the button for your breakfast, you can still read it. The button for milk and cookies, you can read it. But the Prosecco one's completely worn out. And that's because people are basically in the room like this, right? So as a result, I think in our first year, it was something like our first year in Edinburgh, we did 10,000 bottles of Prosecco, which is about the same amount as an output of like a small wine house. So we're like, right, okay, there's kind of something in this. And I one of the things that certainly at the time that was frustrating me with the growth of House of Gods is like, we knew that everybody was kind of like really enjoying the product and loving the experience, but it's, you've only got 20 odd rooms, and it takes a whole lot of investment, a whole lot of time to create another 20 rooms. So that ability to kind of like, have a brand that lives in lots of people's lives is limited by how much accommodation you have. So I'd had this idea that we have this Prosecco that we have made by this wonderful family out in Italy for us, and they brand it, and we've been out there and gone through all the process and everything. And I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll start bringing larger shipments across, and I'll start selling it into maybe direct to consumer. And it would be a little bit of the kind of House of Gods experience, but in a bottle. That was the idea. I ended up going out to Champagne, and I was very fortunate to go and get involved in a bit of the, picking the grapes and, taking it to the press and, the production side of things. And, I was just really keen on creating a champagne brand. And in my research, just in champagne in general, I found this incredible story of the real origins of champagne, and I'll try and do this as quickly as possible because it's a fairly long story, which travels through many years of history. Basically, in the 17th century in northern France, it was the monks that were responsible for making still white wine at the time. And they would harvest in the summer, and they would then, once the wine had fermented in the barrels, they would stick it into a bottle in the winter, and they would cork it, and they would stick it in the cellars of the monasteries. And then sometimes, as the cellar would heat up, what would happen is called the second fermentation process. So this is the bubbles in the bottles, right? And these bubbles would start to form in these bottles, and they would explode all over the cellars. And the monks would run around the cellars, run around the monastery screaming, "La vin de diable, la vin de diable," the devil's wine, because they believed the wine was possessed, right? So they were really trying to stop this from happening. Now, exactly the same time in London, it was the Reformation, and it was the beginning of kind of almost a little bit of the beginning of the London party, London hedonism. And the elite at the time loved this still white wine from northern France. So they would have it imported and in barrels, and the cellar masters of London would do the same thing. They stick this wine in a glass and they cork in a bottle and they'd cork it. And as these bubbles would form, right? Of course, they weren't religious like the same way you would be in the monastery. So they were like, "This is incredible. There's like bubbles in this, right?" Think about it. There's no Soda Stream. There's no Coca-Cola. These are the first. This is the first carbonation. So everyone was like intoxicated by it. And, roll on a few hundred years, and it kind of is this, champagne, I suppose, becomes very popular all around Europe, and in the courts and the palaces of the royal families. It gets to the turn of the century, and France, right, are unveiling the Eiffel Tower. So it was essentially like something like the World Trade Fair at the time, and France were unveiling the Eiffel Tower as this kind of like the glory of France, if you like. And Team France marketing are sitting around a table. They're saying, "Oh, listen, we want to kind of celebrate everything that's French, right?" So they're like, "Well, what have we got? We've got Parisian couture. That's pretty cool. We've got great cheese and wine. That's great. And what about the champagne stuff?" And they were like, "That's cool, but it was actually invented by a guy in London, right? So it's not really originally a product of France," because in the 17th century, there was a guy called Christopher Merritt who actually lived in Holborn. And he was a scientist and one of the founding members of the Royal Society in London. And he was the first person on the discovery of these bubbles to write the paper that is essentially Méthode Champagnaise. So that's the scientific paper of how you create the bubbles in the bottle. And the only way that they were able to contain these bottles was the glassmakers of Shoreditch were so superior in their ability to build glass that they could build glass strong enough to hold these bubbles, right? So this story is obviously known to the French, and they're like, "Right, well, we can't really, we kind of got to get rid of this story." So they concoct a story of a guy called Dom Perignon famously saying, "Come quickly, I'm tasting the stars," on discovering champagne. And, anyway, so this is kind of like largely becomes the new truth, if you like. But listen, there's no ChatGPT or anything at the time, so it was a little bit more difficult to check dates. And Christopher Merritt registered this paper on how to produce champagne in 1662. And it wasn't till 1694 that Dom Perignon famously said, "Come quickly, I'm tasting the stars." So because of their fact check, and it's actually now known to be true that champagne was originally invented in London.
Wow.
So I was like, right, okay.
So you're claiming champagne
I
back?
I think we're kind of going to claim champagne back.
Yeah. No, love
That's
it.
really interesting.
Yeah.
But actually, that story got a little bit deeper because we realized, when I started really looking into the kind of champagne production, one of the problems that Champagne as a region has now is, in order to be called champagne, you have to grow your grapes in Champagne. It's very, very strict, but climate change is causing some issues, right? So it's a little bit too warm in the summer and it's a bit too cold in the winter. So that production is becoming increasingly more difficult. And I started to read that a lot of these champagne houses were buying up vineyards in southern England. And the reason being is the climate, the soil's exactly the same, or the chalky soil's exactly the same, but the climate is now the same as it was 30, 40 years ago in Champagne, in the real golden era of champagne production. So what's happening now when some of these wines are coming, the methodology is exactly the same, method traditionnel, is Christopher Merritt's method. and using exactly the same grapes, arguably, you've got here in the UK we've got something, a product that's maybe probably more representative of what champagne was. So I think it's a really fun story.
Yeah.
It's no knock on the incredible wine producers of France, but it's a little bit of rivalry, which has always been a little bit fun between the UK and France. And it's a fantastic product. So I teamed up with a vineyard here in the UK, just outside of London, and we've produced an incredible wine. And we're just kind of in the process of launching it into a few limited venues just now.
We're from there, we're going to go into some quick fire questions.
Okay.
So what would your favourite hotel in the world be, but not your own?
Costas in Paris, I think, is just so achingly cool.
What's one word you would use to describe House of Gods?
Decadent would be the word.
First thing you notice when you walk into a hotel?
It's always the team. It's always the team. I mean, hotels are where people spend often the precious moments in their life. When you're away from the day-to-day responsibilities, you rarely have somebody come into a hotel that's there to have a bad time.
Yep.
Right. So you've already got that, and if the team are warm and receptive, that's it. You're gonna have a good time.
What's the single most important thing for an elevated guest experience?
The Negroni's got to be right.
It's a good shout. It's a very good shout. One thing every hotel gets wrong.
If you're in the leisure market, it's as I mentioned earlier, you start with experience and the fact that your beds and all that are comfortable and that your rooms are clean. That's your foundation. So you shouldn't be getting that bit wrong.
What's the best and worst advice you've been given in life or in business?
Oh my God! If somebody gives you an opportunity, and it's something that you want to do, just say you can do it and then work out how you're going to do it afterwards. And I think that, if I had even thought through half the things that I've done properly, I would never have done them. Right.
What motivates you?
As a hotelier, you are custodians of people's most precious time. And I think that's a real privilege.
What's the biggest risk you've taken?
I don't know. I think I've become completely immune to that.
Risk averse.
Yeah, I think I've become completely immune to that because, it's just, I just want to keep on creating really cool things. So I don't really think too much
about risk,
that. I think we're a bit more, of course, we try to not to make mistakes. We're balanced in our approaches. There is a system to how we filter whether or not something is going to work or not, and that's come with experience. But if somebody's got a super cool idea and wants to do something fun, then I'm up for it.
You're a sucker for a
100%.
good idea.
I like honestly, that's me. I suffer from shiny things syndrome. We're doing this, we're doing so. Well, that looks pretty good over there. Let's go over there and do that.
So you can open a House of Gods anywhere on the planet. What location would you pick other than Canary Wharf?
If I had a choice to have a hotel anywhere in the world, it would be New York. Hands down, coolest city in the world. Coolest city in the world.
What does success look like for you with the launch of this new hotel?
I just hope that loads of people come here and really enjoy it. And I think that obviously being in London, it's going to open the brand up to an entirely new audience. We opened Edinburgh. It was very, very successful. We're fortunate enough to win Sunday Times Hotel of the Year in our second year. Scotland's a relatively small country, so once you've made a bit of an impression, maybe one or two people removed, everybody would have heard the House of God's name. So it wasn't that difficult to get lots of people to come to the Glasgow hotel. Success here is, it's a very, very busy and crowded marketplace. If we can just get open, show people what we do, and start making that impression, and the audience I really hope what it does is it just massively accelerates the awareness of the brand. So that would really be, obviously carry on hopefully delivering great experiences, but that would be the thing that would be a real success for us.
How would your team describe you?
No.
We can get someone.
Yeah, like please don't. Micromanagement has been mentioned a few times. Actually, I'm way better than I was. I remember it's a really funny story when we were we were a day away from opening Glasgow, and the throw cushions had arrived, and we'd had them all made, and we'd bought these feather inners for them, and and everybody was there helping on the last day, and the COO was responsible for putting the cushions into the cushion fillers into the things, and I actually went through and grabbed them off of him and taught him how to put a cushion in a cushion cover. And I was like, I had to step away for a second. What are you doing, Mike? You're just an adult, a very, very capable human being, and you're trying to micromanage how he puts a cushion inside a cushion cover. And I was like, right, you need to chill out a little bit. And actually, I've got a lot better now. And it's only because it was such a wonderful team that I've allowed to do that. But I think when something's so precious to you, it's hard to let that go. But you have to,
What do you do to switch off, if you ever switch off? Which it doesn't sound like you do.
I really like going skiing. I don't get away very often, but that would probably be the one time where I 100% am not living in the future or the past, and I'm in the present. Because when you're skiing really, really fast and you come over a hill and it's all icy, you can't be thinking about what your ADR is.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's probably the few times I really get to switch off. I love that.
What's the most outrageous thing you've ever bought?
When you kind of go to some of the bigger hotels in London, in Hyde Park or wherever, and there's all these luxury cars parked outside, right? Your Lamborghinis and your Rolls-Royces and all that kind of thing. I was thinking, wouldn't it be really cool if outside Edinburgh House of Gods we had some mad luxury car, right? And I was kind of we had we'd totally run out of money when we were building House of Gods 1, and my brother and I had very much kind of bootstrapped it. Anyway, private equity firm came to us and said, listen, we'd love to invest in House of Gods and help you roll it out. And anyway, so we did a deal with them. And this was, I'm going to give you the timing of this because it's quite interesting. I think this was January 2020, right?
Yeah.
So if you cast your mind back to when that was, right? And anyway, we did the deal, and I was kind of summoned to, obviously, this is for the Edinburgh Hotel. So I was summoned to London to come and have a little bit of a celebratory dinner. So I was staying in Kip in Hackney at the time. And I had gone, and I was properly wined and dined. And then I think we ended up in 5 Hertford Street or something like that till daft o'clock in the morning. And I stumbled home. I don't really remember, but we had obviously just received all of the funding for the growth of House of Gods. And I must have woken up at sort of 7 or 8 in the morning, having had very, very little sleep, and I decided that this was going to be a really, really good time to go online and buy a Rolls-Royce that I could stick outside the hotel in Edinburgh. And then I must have done that and then just fallen asleep again, right? And then I woke up a few hours later and I was like, did I buy a Rolls-Royce or did I just dream that, right? I had bought a Rolls-Royce. So anyway, it's a 1975 Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow, right? It was actually a wedding car. So I was like, oh my God. So I phoned the office and I went, listen, I might have done something really, really silly. I bought a Rolls Royce. Could somebody get me some insurance and cover on the AA? And I had this car and I took it and I parked it outside the hotel. And I thought it was brilliant. Everybody's going, have you seen this car that's outside, right? So it's January 2020. And about 14 days after I'd bought this car, Boris Johnson shuts the country down because of COVID, right? All hotels are closed, right? So my new private equity firm, they have this kind of obviously they're phoning around all their investments going, right, listen, this might be bad. They batten down the hatches, you're going to get through this. And they phoned us and we had this meeting and they said, listen, we're really, really happy. Obviously, you guys have got your full investment, so you're good. Just make sure you don't spend any money, and we'll all get through this, right? And they were like, and I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, how am I going to tell them this, right? And it gets to the end of the board call, and everyone's familiar with the board meeting, is they have this AOB, any other business, right? And like, I kind of like sheepishly put my hand up, and I was like, I've got one thing I've got to tell you. I might have bought a Rolls-Royce. and I just watched, because it was on Zoom, I just watched all of the board members' screens just go dead, off. And then I'm just sat there on my own just going, okay. So anyway, we got over it and we're still friends. So.
Have you still got the Rolls-Royce?
I actually do still have the Rolls-Royce.
Okay. Didn't have to sell it.
It's a great investment. Great investment.
Just what you shouldn't do right before a pandemic, a global pandemic.
Absolutely.
Just to kind of start wrapping things up. So we always ask our guests to give us a question for the next person in the hot seat. So this question was left for you by Kurt Macker from the Shangri-La, the Shard, the Vice President of Europe. So how does hospitality need to change to attract new talent?
Investment in learning. I think we're at the cusp of like so much change here, right? With obviously, the hot topic being AI, where I think the back end of hotel management and an organization, everything, there's going to be so much change there. Whether or not it's from the development of AI tools for reservations, and I mean, just even like sitting down and writing a rota now. These things are all going to disappear. If there's a real attention paid to the vacation of like service, and developing those skills, then I can really see some amazing opportunity within hospitality, because the world's going to become like a very frictionless and transactional place that's essentially run by robots. And I think that hospitality there's going to be so much focus on it, because that's going to be where you're going to get your human interaction.
Yeah.
And I think that this could be a great opportunity for hospitality becoming significantly more vocational.
What question would you like to leave for our next guest?
What's your next guest going to be doing to kind of address this, the fact that AI is going to fundamentally change the business?
What are your thoughts on that?
I think everything's going to fundamentally change. Because one of the problems with I think the moving from where we are now to where we all will be in 10 years is you've already got all your own jobs to do every day that you've got to kind of get through. So how much of that day are you going to spend thinking about like, how can I automate this and how can I automate that? And it's not as easy as like, people on Instagram will lead you to believe. You can't just like turn on an agent and all of a sudden you don't have to do anything anymore, right? All of this stuff has to, AI at the moment is like, it's just a better way of doing automation. Automation's always existed, right? It's just like got a little bit more intelligence about it now. But all these automations just take a long time to set up and organize and all the rest of it. So anybody that's doing it now has to be really serious about it and get somebody in. And
do you think it's important for staff to be trained in how to use it, maybe as a sort of more like a companion to assist them with roles?
I think so. I think it's like, I don't think it's a case of just, hey, get yourself a ChatGPT account. I think it's like using like agents that have got very, guidelines already built into them to help staff. That's going to be where it really is really helpful. And training your AI to be able to respond. I mean, listen, nobody should be answering, where's the car park anymore?
Yeah.
Right? Leave that to the robots, and
you can focus on
make somebody's day by taking them showing them to the room, and and explaining a little bit of the story about the hotel, and writing them a handwritten card like congratulating them on their wedding anniversary.
It's or something. Using that time to
exactly use that time instead of sitting around worrying about like whether or not you got the rota right. use that time to create
Immerse
incredible
people,
hospitality moments and great memories for people.
Definitely. Mike, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. Before we part ways and probably head over to the bar for a drink,
of course.
we always ask the same final question to every guest we have on before we leave. So what is your definition of hospitality, and what do you love the most about this industry?
My definition of hospitality, I try to think of it like welcoming somebody into my own home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, when you welcome somebody into your home, you make sure that you've got the best sausages for breakfast in the morning. You make sure that the house has never been as clean as it is now. And, if you approach the hospitality business with that mindset, then even if you get it wrong,
Home from home.
That's hospitality, one human to another.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mike, pleasure. I think that will do. But no,
thanks so
brilliant.
much.
Thank you, mate.
Man.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys. Cheers. Really enjoyed that.